Hey guys, welcome back to the Max Spence Business Podcast. Today I have a very special guest, but before we jump into that, if you guys like the content I'm putting out, the people I'm interviewing, please like, subscribe, leave a review. It helps out a ton with the podcast. If you can go over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review, that helps out a ton as well. So today's guest is Jeff Giorgi. So Jeff is a partner and head of educational partnerships at Quadc. He's also the podcast host of Quadc. It's great having you on the show, Jeff.
Hey. It's a pleasure being here, Max. It's an absolute pleasure. You and I have spoken many times before this, and we made it happen. So yeah, I'm excited, and thank you.
Awesome. So before we actually jump into a little bit deeper about you, why don't we talk a little bit about Quadc and what you guys are doing for the people that are listening, because you might be able to help some of them out. So why don't we just talk about what is Quadc? What are you guys doing? And then also, can you talk a little bit about the podcast?
Yeah, sure. So Quadc, what we focus on is primarily we help higher education institutions and high schools connect their students with their various services. So schools, you could kind of view like higher ed and high schools and education, although some of them won't say they're businesses, they are businesses, right? And these businesses have different business units within their schools, right? So they have a bunch of different services. They have student-facing services, they have faculty-facing services, staff-facing services, you name it. They got a bunch of different services. And one of our focuses, although I'll get into the faculty side and staff side, but one of our main focuses is helping students connect with their school's services. And a simple example is, let's say I'm a student, I I'm going through some tough times, or I don't know, I've got some family stuff or some personal stuff going on, and I just need to reach out to a counselor. So I can log in, immediately see click filter for counseling services, and then link up with that person, event, workshop, resource, whatever it is. Probably more one-on-one if it's a counseling related, for the example that I'm giving, right? Another example could be, hey, I'm registered in accounting. I'm not sure if it's the right degree for me, so maybe I need to go link up with a career advisor and see what kind of internships that are available. Because internships and experience has been shown to help people discover their path, right? To get a taste of what their degree is like, to see if it's really the path for them. So to summarize it is, one, we connect the students with the school services, whether that's online or in person. That's a misconception. A lot of people think that we just do online, but no, we also help if your events or your counseling meeting is in person, that's fine. We support that too, right? And then so that's on like the student facing side, the user facing side. Then you have the administrative management point of view, where all of these services that they have 1,000,001 operations, right? They have all these operations set up to manage their service. And those operations are not streamlined. They don't talk to each other. So they cause a lot of bottlenecks for the school's ability to grow, scale, and reach more students, whether that's prospective students or enrolled students. And some of those operations include, collecting feedback after sessions, scheduling, the link to, the video conferencing, right? So they have Zoom or WebEx, which is great, but it's getting to the Zoom or WebEx where it's the problem, right? And all the workflows prior and after. Yeah. Communication is another operation, right? So there's all those operations that we also help streamline, automate or semi-automate for the staff.
Okay, awesome. And then talking about the podcast quickly, when did you guys come out with that, and why did you guys decide to start running an educational based podcast? Well, like talking about like what you guys are doing, right? Or that's what I would think, right?
Yeah. We decided to do it, and I decided to launch this podcast. One of my online mentors, Gary Vaynerchuk, aka Gary V, I remember watching a video from him not too long ago. I see him on my YouTube almost every day, but one of the things that he highly, highly, highly recommended was to start a podcast. And there are many reasons for that, but some of the core reasons is, at the heart, we are still very new to this higher ed and education space, right? I'm not going to pretend like I know everything. So what these podcasts, one of the core goals, and I guess really what's behind it, is to learn from others. All right. I want to learn, hey, what's important to an advisor in higher ed? What's most important to career services? I am connecting with like instructional designers. Even though I don't sell, quote unquote, to instructional designers, I'm curious to know, what is their role in the school? How do they connect? How do they communicate? How do they collaborate with students and people, right? So it's an angle for us to learn about those various roles in higher ed and how it all mixes in with, what we do. There's a famous quote by, I think, Warren Buffett: "The more you learn, the more you earn." And that doesn't just mean money. It means also earning your knowledge in knowledge. And the second reason is, you understand this, and what people need to understand is, it's about, when you want to make a splash, when you want to get known for what you do, well, you have to be out there. You have to put yourself out there. And that podcast falls in line with that. And it's great for content, right? I also, I use it as a way to connect with others, and then my network see the people I'm talking with, and then they connect with each other, right? So it also facilitates, it's not just a me thing or for Quadc, it's also for others to connect. But yeah, I would say at the forefront is, one, we put our egos aside and we realize there's a lot to learn. And then two, podcast is just a great source for content. You can, have a 45-minute, an hour episode, and then cut up some clips, right? And you've got more content, more value to give to your audience. So
no, 100%. Like I agree with you in that, and that's one of the main reasons I run a podcast, right? Is like, it gives you the opportunity to network with people, because you're able to give value, right? When you're shooting a podcast, instead of just having like a 5-minute, 10-minute conversation, you're actually able to, say, hey, why don't we have a 45-minute conversation? We'll record it. I'll cut it up into chunks, and then I'll send it to you. Now you have content, right? And instead of it's like a symbiosis relationship. They're giving you knowledge. You're giving them a little bit of value with video content. I quickly wanted to ask, I was interested, you were talking about, like, you guys are interviewing like different, people in the educational space at universities, colleges, and maybe high schools. And do you guys actually interview any students? Like, let's say student, like, I know that there's student councils, right? Like any of these head of student councils are, right? And sort of asking them about like, what do they want out of school? Like what problems are they facing on, like, pretty much in the trenches of actually being in school, right?
See, this is why you're awesome, Max, because you just reminded me to reach out to someone who does run a student agency. And I'm literally going to open up their LinkedIn profile right now and message them after our episode. But yes, so I interview a bunch, all from all different backgrounds, all different levels, like from VP to director, manager, coordinator. I don't really focus on the title so much. It's more about if they have if I believe that they have a progressive mind, in the education space, I want to get them on. And you bring up a really good point, because now I had an episode with a tutor, a writing tutor. And she was also, she was a student at the time, but the focus more for that particular episode was about the tutor experience. But yeah, 100%. Like, I want to also know, I want to connect with progressive minds, and hey, if that's a student, great. And then I can also learn about the difficulties. And I've chatted with people on LinkedIn or like quick phone calls. I haven't had a podcast episode yet with a student, but yes, for sure, we will definitely do that. And what's interesting is that a lot of students tell me that the user experience to access their student services is, let's just say, not the smoothest user experience. So, and they joke around to say, hey, Jeff, if I was a decision maker, I would sign right now. But yeah.
That's great to hear then, right? It's like your products and services are making an effect, right? Which is the most important of like running a company, right? Is like you want to be having an effect and you want to be improving people's lives.
100%. Absolutely. 100%.
So now I want to jump into, because I knew you before Quadc and how you're like, before you were killing it in this space and you're killing it in other spaces before. And I sort of want to talk to you about like, for people that maybe have never heard of you on like maybe more of a personal level, it's like, what's sort of your background and your sort of story of, like I know that you're running your own company at a time. I know that you're in sales and marketing. Now you're with, an educational company and really helping them out and your partner as well. What's sort of your story and trajectory into like the educational space?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's really interesting that I ended up in this space because I'm a university dropout that's now selling to universities. Isn't that funny, eh?
Jeff, I actually absolutely love that. Like that's amazing. Yeah, and I find that, like you said, I find that really interesting. So yeah, why don't we just start from the beginning of how your trajectory in life sort of played out?
So yeah, basically in university, I studied business. I was studying business. I was never great academically. The courses that I did tend to do well in was more math based because I kind of see them as like puzzles and like challenges, and I had a good tutor in high school that built a solid foundation for me for math and like how to like dissect problems and plan, organize, that sort of stuff. But yeah, I was never really great academically, like with the traditional like textbook and stuff. And then, so then like after a couple of years of attending business school, I was doing terribly. I had like 13 or 14 Fs. I really want to actually reach out to Concordia University is where I went, John Molson School of Business at Concordia in Montreal. I have to reach out to the admissions because I want to get my transcript that says like 14 Fs. I want to get that framed. So I wasn't, what's up?
Gary V style.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Or Jeff Giorgi style. But yeah. And yeah, I just felt like I wasn't, the way that I learn is by getting my hands and feet wet, by doing it. Right. So, and I just didn't feel that the school was offering that to me or many others. And to get into the co-op program, you needed a certain GPA. Well, I didn't have that GPA. So like there was all these fences and barriers, and I'm like, you know what? Let me go and create my own internship. And I'll never forget, I had a meeting with my academic advisor, and my academic advisor at the time was telling me not to get an internship. They were saying like, no, keep studying, don't do an internship. And I found that was really puzzling. And then immediately after that meeting, I walked out and I said, I am not coming back here. I didn't formally drop out. I just didn't go to the remainder of the courses. It was near like the end of the semester. And so I just stopped going. And then and then I got an internship at a digital marketing agency, and then I learned about myself, what I like, what I don't like, what I'm good at, what I'm good at. And
quickly, I sort of want to jump into that because I think you'd give a lot of value to, because of COVID and how things have happened and unfolded in life right now. There's probably some students out there that have decided to leave, university for a multitude of reasons, and they're maybe in that like position you were in. And how did you as soon as you left, and it's like, I don't know if this is true or not, but it might have been like very hard, or it might have been easy. I don't know how you sort of dealt with it. But could you talk about that and sort of give your advice about how you maneuvered from leaving university to getting your first job, that internship, and then pretty much moving out, moving on and, building your career without, a university degree, if you want to talk about that quickly.
Yeah. I think what's the most important thing to realize, I think the first step for me, because there's societal pressures, right? Everybody says get an education. get an education, which means what? Does that necessarily mean to go to university or college? That's what people think, right? They say, yeah, go to get an education, do the right thing. Your parents are paying. Oh my God, you need to go get an education, right? Go get that degree. Now I'll stick to business because that's what is my realm. I can't speak for people that are doing their doctorate or their law degrees or accounting or anything that's like really government intertwined where you need a piece of paper. So I'll focus more on the business side. So those that are interested in pursuing business or even like actually like software engineering, you don't need a degree. Like Google, Apple is like, no, we'll train you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like they don't necessarily look for degrees. But anyway, so I think the most important part, and for me, was I have these people that I look up to in the world. You know, Gary Vaynerchuk being one of them. We mentioned Dana White, who's president of the UFC, Ultimate Fighting Championship. Who else comes to mind? Guy Laliberté, who founded Cirque du Soleil. I think Michael Dell. There was someone else recently I watched. Patrick Bet-David is another influencer on YouTube. This really, really well-respected, smart, successful person in business. And what was the commonality among these people? They did not have a degree. So I said to myself, well, if example, Dana White, who's, you know, very, very successful, not just monetarily, but also mentally and in all other aspects. I'm like, well, if these people, if these guys and girls, and if these people can do it, like why can't I do it? Right? Why can't I get into the business world without a degree? So I think that's step one, is first committing and realizing I like selling yourself, right? As Grant Cardone's another, I can't believe I missed to say him. Grant Cardone is another example, right? You don't need a degree to be successful in business. But one of the things that Grant Cardone really emphasized was the commitment. You have to first sell yourself on whatever it is that you're doing, right? Like when you go into a sales job or whatever, you got to commit. So I committed to myself to say, hey, I don't need a degree. I'm not going to let letters and numbers dictate my future, right? I'm going to go and I'm interested in digital marketing and sales. Well, let me go get an internship at a digital marketing agency, right? So now we can dive more in detail. I have got there's a page that I started called Journey of a Salesman, and that's, Max, one of the questions you asked about, hey, how does someone start? I'm going to be putting together content to say, hey, if you're in this position, you know, this is what you need to do step by step, right? How to go and reach out to companies, how to overcome the objection in the interview. Well, you don't have a university degree. You know, what do you say to that if someone asks you that? How to get past the gatekeeper, right? You know, it's like Lucy you have to talk to, who's the first layer of decision making for the job. Well, how do you get to Lucy? What do you say to Lucy when you call them, right? What do you do? Do you just, you know, send your resume, or what other things can you do, right? So applying the sales process to their job hunting process is what I can definitely give some insight on. But yeah, so that's a little bit about my background, how I started. And I know this is a long tail answer, so I hope I answered your question, but yeah, that's how I first started and decided to say and to realize to myself, hey, you know, also not caring about what other people think, right? I had my friends, my family, everybody, no, Jeff, no, complete the degree, don't leave. And I'm like, it's not getting me anywhere. It's not my style of learning. And, you know, even though my friends today that told me, like, they were like, yeah, you're right. You have to go out and find your own school, right? Is what I did. Yeah.
Actually, that is absolutely, like, I love that a lot. Like what you just said right there, you have to go out and find your own school. It is 100% correct. Cause like, you know, like all these universities, right? And I like university, but at the same time, I don't like university because I think it's good for some people, and I think you can learn a lot. But it's like, for the amount of money that's coming into it, and, you know, like, depends if you get a good prof, if you get a bad prof. There's a lot of decisions that are pretty much out of your hands, whether you get like what you intended you wanted to get, right? Out of like the educational learning. Would have been better to maybe, work 3 months for free at a company you knew you wanted to work out after you got your degree, work there for 3 months free, work your pretty much face off, like Gary Vee says. And then, them actually bring you on as like maybe an associate or something else, right? And then you start making money and pretty much you're getting paid to learn pretty much your degree. Right? You get paid to learn.
Absolutely. Right. You create, and I spoke with someone else, the name's on the tip of my tongue, but yeah, they said, you can create your own internships. You can go out there and see, the world is your oyster. Right. And man, universities, colleges don't have a monopoly on education. You can get educated by many, many other means by doing it, right? And that's I think is the most effective way to learn, right? You can read all the books you want on something, but at the end of the day, hey, have you done this?
Yeah.
Right. You're gonna encounter things that your textbook, page 258, line 79, didn't warn you about, that you're only going to discover in real life. So
through experience,
man.
Something I'm interested, like you're in the education space and you're sort of seeing like what's happening with universities and how they're sort of adapting. And I know right now because of COVID, I heard, I don't know, to be honest, I don't know which school it was, but I heard that there was maybe 1 or 2 schools that were like universities that were on the edge of bankruptcy. Because of COVID and everything happening, people, withdrawing because they wanted to wait and then go to university after, with all that sort of stuff. And I've talked and it's been a conversation around my friends because I'm sort of at the age, I'm 20. So my friends are, 20, 21. Some of them are 22, getting out of university or finished university already. And we just sort of just had this conversation around what do you think is going to happen with university, right? Like, do you think it's going to be the same? Because it seems like it needs to change. Like it's gotten to a point hey, 10, 15 years ago, university was the most companies back then, you had to have that piece of paper to get into, a company, right? Because there wasn't all these tools like LinkedIn where you can't just hop on LinkedIn and message the CEO of the company or the vice president of the company and say, hey, can I have a coffee meeting? There wasn't these other funnels that are now available to pretty much, students, I would say students or people my age, that you're able to get jobs. And there's so much, information on the internet, right? Whereas previously, if you wanted to learn something, you had to go to university to learn that, right? Because the internet wasn't at the level yet, or there wasn't internet.
Right.
So I'm sort of, that was pretty much the conversation it was revolving around, was do you think, are universities going to change, or do you think they're going to stay the same for the, the duration of the future? I personally think, I'll let you answer.
Yeah.
I just want to say what my personal thought is. I think there's going to be a savvy, entrepreneur that's going to come around and pretty much just flip education on its head with how, they're going to create an entire new structure, how the internet pretty much, changed up the world, right? Yep. I think there's going to be an entrepreneur that comes out and puts things together that's going to make learnings in a really, in an easy way online, and a lot more affordable than, going out and going to a university.
No, 100%. Actually, this is already, there's several that have already started to, spin up online schools or alternative business schools. Yeah, 100%. The answer is if universities don't adapt, they're going to fail. Mm-hmm. They're going to crumble, because that's exactly what people are thinking and parents are thinking. And now you have the parents, me in 10 years, I'm going to seriously, if I have kids, I don't know that's a separate conversation, but let's say I have kids one day. I'm going to if my kid is cool, I want to go to business school. I'm going to be cool. Let's see if that business school teaches sales. I'm curious. Can you find out? I already know what the answer is. A lot of them don't. They don't even teach the basics of sales, which, how can you call yourself a business school, right? Anyway, but yeah, a lot of the schools have to change, because if they don't change, these other alternatives, look at whether you're into stocks or ETFs or blockchain, cryptocurrency, Wealth Simple. Mm-hmm. You sign up, literally their ads are actually genius. Took me what, I don't know, less than 10 minutes, like 10, 15 minutes or something. Right. Do you think I'm going to my bank to do all? No, I'm not. Not that I don't want to go to not that I hate going to the bank or anything, but it's like, it's just boom, boom. It's easy. You know, the banks have been notorious. You know, you go to the bank's website, it looks like 2001. You know what I mean? Like it takes me forever to find the simple, like I forget what I had to do the other day. Anyway, I had to do something online, like the check or something. And like, it's, the information is there, but it's just so hard to find. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah. So there definitely will be schools, and I've been told, this isn't me like being negative or anything. I've been told from people in higher ed, you know, very smart people high up the food chain in higher ed. They have confirmed with me, yes, there are definitely schools that will go under. But it's the schools that are open-minded to adopt the right technologies to help them connect with their students, right?
Yeah.
And as long as they do that and they promote, I think what's also a huge opportunity for schools is all about including internships, apprenticeships, the co-op experience, right? Getting students involved with experience as soon as possible, because it's also more effective for their bottom line. I'll get into that later, but yeah, colleges, universities need to adapt, and they are changing. And you know, going back to like me, as if I'm a future parent, you know, I'm going to seriously question, okay. And these schools aren't cheap, right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's not like it's $200. Okay. It's like 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, right? So I think if you're deciding to go to a business school, you should seriously start questioning to say, wait, I'm going to pay whatever, let's say 10,000. Okay. I'm going to pay $10,000 a year. And after that, after those 3 years, I'm not going to know how to launch a Facebook ad. I'm not going to know how to pick up the phone and sell and talk to someone and qualify them. I'm not going to know the basics of selling. I'm not going to know how to launch a TikTok ad. I'm not going to know how to launch a TikTok campaign. I'm not going to learn how to run Instagram, you know, create Instagram accounts.
Yeah.
You should seriously be questioning why you're going to spend time and spend that kind of money when there are alternatives. And I'll give an example. This guy gets a lot of hate. And people, like, there's a lot of things like, is this person a scam? Maybe you've heard of Ty Lopez.
Yeah.
Right. He launched an online, like, learn how to run your social media marketing agency and other things and learning about business. And I look at how much he's charging, like $600, $700.
Mm-hmm.
And after those 2-3 months of going through his program, you actually learn how to set up a Shopify page or a website. You know, the value is so much more. And it's the other thing too, the other big difference, Max, is that it's not going to take you 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because how much, look, now you're doing this awesome stuff with TikTok, which is super genius. I love that you're doing that. Right? That's not that long ago when TikTok came about, right? It's new. So by the time universities and colleges put out their curriculums and all this,
it's so like that's something I want to clarify. Like I'm like, and you're probably the exact same. It's like, I'm not against learning or education. I just think they need to adapt of how they actually, you know, give that information out to, you know, students, right? Because like, let's say for TikTok, and like, this is a great example. You're not going to learn TikTok at a university right now. It's like they're too slow with their curriculum. But if you hop onto YouTube, you can watch 300 videos, you know, talking about TikTok. And that's where I've learned the majority of my stuff is from different people, you know, pretty much on YouTube that have already, you know, put the trials and errors and already have the experience of running, you know, different campaigns. And they, you know, some of them have their own, like, you know, huge TikTok marketing companies and Instagram marketing companies. And they talk about, like, you know, like what they've learned and how much research they've done. And there's all this information and it's free, right? You can just access it for free, right? So I'm sort of interested to see what sort of happens in the next like 5 years with the educational space. But moving on from that now, I sort of want to talk about networking and LinkedIn.
Mm.
For one, networking, like you seem like you're a very like outgoing person. You're very confident in, like networking, all that sort of stuff. Was that always who you were, or is that something you needed to build? If so, like, what would your advice be out to, because like when I first started on LinkedIn and I first started in this sort of space of like reaching out to people, I was really nervous. Like I remember going to the first few like networking events in like 2019, 2018, and being like so nervous for them. Like didn't know how to like network, didn't know how to speak to people, all this sort of stuff, and like sort of falling on my face a few times before actually getting it going. And what would your advice be to that? Like somebody who's like, at 20 years old and it's like, oh, I'm not going to network because I'm 20 years old and, nobody really cares what I think or what I do, right? I'm just at university or, something like that.
Yeah. Well, one is recognizing, and I think having the philosophy that the seeds you plant today will bloom tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're a student can easily say, oh, why do I need to do this? Sure. Well, if you start now, by the time you graduate or whatever, you'll have some people that you've connected with that like you, that think you might be a valuable asset to their business. Well, wouldn't you rather start doing that 2 years in advance instead of waiting right after? So my advice, this is something, and if you can share this, if I'm going to give any advice, is there is one is to like, okay, for LinkedIn, let's talk LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, first and foremost, get a picture up there. For crying out loud, people, get a proper picture, not of you and your girlfriend or boyfriend cut off with the arm, like get something. It doesn't have to be complicated. You take your iPhone or your smartphone, your Android, whatever it is, you can get a professional photographer. And I shout out to Dwayne here in Ottawa. Definitely, it's worth it to get a professional photographer. If you can't, no problem. Ask your friend, right? Simple, get the light facing you, smile, just get something basic, right? That's the first and foremost. Get your LinkedIn profile so that it speaks to what you want to do. Not like, I think I'm qualified because, like, tell people like a little bit about you. Like, hey, I went into engineering because my interest is this. And I have an interest and passion for, I don't know, building things and electronics or whatever it is, right? And then the second piece of advice that I would give to follow up is a lot of people don't know where to start on LinkedIn. Like, okay, I have a LinkedIn profile, right? Everybody's like, well, get a LinkedIn profile because that's what everybody does, right? It's like, oh, you're a professional and get a LinkedIn profile, but a lot of people don't know how to use it. So very simple. What I would do is, and this is a message that, you can clip out and share with others. When you reach out to a business owner or whatever company, right? There's a bunch of different filtering you can do on LinkedIn. But the great thing about LinkedIn, ladies and gentlemen, is that you can send a customized note to someone for free. You don't have to have the paid LinkedIn, okay? You hit the connect button and add note. Again, I will repeat. You hit connect and you add note. Don't just connect without a note. Connect, add your note. And your note can say this. Hey, Mr. or Mrs. CEO or whatever, director of blah, blah, blah position, saw your job opening on your website. Super interested in this position for this reason. Not 100% certain that I am a good fit or if you're the perfect person to speak with, but I figured it would make sense for me to reach out given this opportunity on your website, and then sign your name and that's it, right? Just tell them like, hey, I'm reaching out because I'm interested and I, looked at your website or looked at your product. I'm into this. And, if you're not the right person, that's okay. I figured I'd reach out. Maybe you can help me. Right. And that's something that I would, if I were to give a piece of advice that people can action on with something concrete, is that, right? Mm-hmm. Is send a note to someone on LinkedIn. Why do you want to do LinkedIn? Because these people get enough emails. Mm-hmm. You don't need to add 211th email in their inbox that day.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
But you can certainly add a personal. Yeah. Yeah.
I 100% agree with you. Is like the reach you're able to get on LinkedIn is like, I've been able to network with like I would say like one person that I was able to get on my podcast was Bruce Linton, right? Who is the, co-founder and former CEO of Canopy Growth, right? Which was like a $15 billion company.
Oh,
Yeah.
look at that. You see?
Yeah.
Bingo.
And the crazy thing too is like, if I probably sent him an email, he would probably not have gone back to me. And by leveraging LinkedIn and sending a message a little bit about my story, like, cause like the thing with that is like those they most likely they might have their email. They might not even check their email. Cause if they're a prominent business person, right, there's probably somebody else that's going through their emails, right? And is like filtering, because they must get like, hundreds of emails a day from everything from like,
exactly. Yes.
and they probably have somebody that's just filtering out, and it's like, okay, this is important. He needs to know this. So it gets sent to him or her. Right. And it's just sort of like, and if your email pops up, the most likely the gatekeeper is just going to be like, yeah, that's not important for him right now. Right. He's like doing the, like working on a $10 million business deal or something like that. The funny thing I wanted to mention was like, I don't know if you've had this experience, but usually when I do something new, it takes me so long. Like I remember when I was like, I think I was 18 and I was crafting like the first email to like send to somebody like that was in the business space. Right. And I was like so nervous, and it literally took me like 2 hours really to just to, like literally, like I don't even joke. Like it was 2 hours of like watching videos about how to properly craft, a business email with like, the spaces and like how many spaces each, like, between like, your introduction and what you should use. Is it like best regards, sincere, like,
yeah.
and now it's like, and now I'm like, and now it's sort of like, I've got the, like, seen the experience of just being like, people don't really care about that. They're like, as long as you come across and you're courteous and you're nice, and you're quick to get your point across, people will, read the email. They don't care if it's like 3 spaces or 4 spaces.
Absolutely. It doesn't care if it says regards, best, cheers. Actually, it's funny you bring this up because I have an email in my inbox right now where someone got back to me. I've never reached out to this person, but I took a page out of some other people's books in the past, and my headline is first name, I'm studying your, and I put the name of their service, which is listed on their website, plus fit with your strategic plan, ? So now that, I don't know if that might not mean much to some people, but basically what I did was I show that this is personalized, right? Mm-hmm. So when this person receives it, they're like, oh, this is not a robot. Mm-hmm. This person actually went to my website, looked at my service, and identified things in my school's strategic plan that relate to my position at the school. Right. Anyway, she replied, and I'll take care of that after. Yeah.
No, sorry to cut you off there. I was just going to say like that's absolutely perfect. Because like, instead of saying like you narrowed everything down, which I think is a huge piece of advice, that I'm so happy you actually shared that, because I think that's so useful. Instead of you just being like, we can help with your, like, we help business strategy or something, or we can help with your business strategy. It's like, what is that? Like, that's like, that makes no sense. Like, not exactly. It's like, what's that for? Whereas you like actually like, it was like in detail and specific of like the question that you were asking, right? Instead of saying, hey, do you need help with growing your business? Which is like,
it's like, that's vague. It's like, sure. But like, yeah, exactly. Bingo. Right. Like if someone emailed me saying, Jeff, I studied I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile and noticed this. Mm-hmm. I'm going to open that email. I'm going to read it. Now, I don't know if I'm going to like get on the phone, but I will be like, okay, kudos to this person. They actually went to my LinkedIn. They took 2 minutes to figure out what my business is, and they're asking a logical question or something. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%. So now I sort of want to jump too quickly, and I've just got a couple more questions before we'll wrap up here. The educational space, right? Getting into that, like, what, like, did you have any like notions about like before you got into it, and like what sort of surprised you about the space once you got into it, right?
What surprised me most was there's a lot of progressive and awesome people in higher ed. Mm-hmm. That are actually not satisfied and agree with how higher ed is structured. So that was cool.
Wow.
How I got there, I was freelancing LinkedIn services. I was helping small and medium businesses get sales meetings through LinkedIn. And then one of my clients was TutorOcean, Will Lee, who co-founded and created TutorOcean. I started helping him and his business and some of his sales folks at the time generate leads. And then one of the people on the sales team left. And then, I was also working not just with Will. Well, I was actually working directly more with Curtis. Shout out to Curtis and Dan. And and then one of the salespeople left, and then we were doing some good work together. I was showing some results, but it was also there was this energy and mesh and cohesiveness that was just very organic. And we just enjoyed working together. And then one thing led to another. Will said, hey, I had somebody left my team, and I like what you're doing on the LinkedIn side. And then one thing led to another, and he said, hey, I could really use your help, like if you're interested in joining us full time. And at the time I was freelancing, but I was also having challenges scaling my business too. So, anyway, after some thought and some discussions with them, just one thing led to another. And then I was like, what, like, I love the bigger vision. And Will told me the vision, which is access to knowledge should not be a privilege, but should be a right. That really resonated with me, and his story and his background. And, it falls in line with me too, right? Like, also shout out to Doug that said a spinoff of that quote from Will Lee is a fulfilled career should not be a privilege, but a right. And that's where that's kind of where I fit in with, every student like that signs up to a university or college should, obviously the student has to do some work and have initiative, but the university and college should be able to help them discover their path through experience, not just theory. So that's kind of where we fit. And that's how I found myself. And at first I was like, super like, what the F am I doing? Like, what? I dropped out of university and college, and now what am I doing? And, but yeah, and actually there's a lot of, and that's another thing too. A lot of people in higher ed were actually very like, when we talk non-business stuff and we're just chatting, they actually like that. They admire that. They're like, wow, that's really cool that you left, but you made you went off and you discovered you made your own education, right? Which is awesome. So anyway, that's kind of how I started with TutorOcean.
Mm-hmm.
And how that morphed into Quadc for our higher ed solution. Yeah. So that's how I started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, that I love the quotes that the leaders of the company gave. That's absolutely amazing, and the culture seems to be amazing there. And like to quickly talk about that, how did they go about like building a good culture? Like what have you seen from them that have like really had like an amazing culture, and what do you do yourself to build a good culture in the company?
That's a great question. I think it's that's a really good question. I think at the heart of it would be in realizing who you bring on board should feel natural and organic. And what I mean by that is like, so great question. So I'll introduce Will when I meet someone on LinkedIn or whoever that I think can help the business, not just with their skills, but also like their values, their ethics. That's where like it starts. Like you feel that energy. It's like this intangible thing, right? I mean, you know about it when you talk to people, or you talk to some prospects, and it's like, sometimes it goes in one ear out the other. Then you connect with someone else, and it's just like you're jiving, right? You see eye to eye, the energy's there. So I think part of building that culture, is identifying that energy and that it's natural and it's organic, and making sure that whoever we bring on board with us has the same values, has the same ethics, right? That's really what it's about. Like, I'll take someone who doesn't have, much sales experience and coach them and train them if they have the right values and ethics behind it, rather than someone who doesn't, right? Who may have like years of experience and that doesn't fit, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then, that's a question, you'll have to ask Will and Doug and others, and Curtis and others, on how they, because I'm not the only one to be able to answer that. But I would say at the heart of it is listen to your gut. And when you get that gut feeling of like, wow, not only is this person qualified, I feel something there with them. Mm-hmm. There's a connection, right? There's a deeper connection, and it's something that you can't ask for on a resume or whatever. It's just something that you feel when you start talking to them, right? So yeah,
no, 100%. And that's like, and I think that comes back to the old saying is, people like to do business with people they like, right? It's like people want to do business with
people.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
If yes. people want to work with like-minded people, if you might have all the educational things and the certificates and all that sort of stuff, but if you just don't jive with like the mission that, the company's trying to do, it's just, it won't work. Right. So that's another amazing thing to talk about. I know we're coming to the end here. I've just got one last question.
Yeah.
Sort of talking through, like, you've had a lot of experience maneuvering, going through different things and different like things with life and stuff. Mm-hmm. How do you sort of come back from, like, have you had any huge setbacks in your life? And would you be willing to share them and sort of give your advice about, like, one setback that happened 100%. And, how you overcame it, what you learned from it, and how it made you, a better person, or how it sort of changed you for maybe, something not as good or whatever. Right.
Yeah. Great question. Yeah, absolutely. I was freelancing LinkedIn services. Like I said, I was helping small and medium businesses, and I failed. I failed in a sense to scale my business, and it sucks to fail because I'm putting myself out there, and then people don't see as much as me, and I'm not posting as much, and then it's clear that I'm not successful in that. And at the time, this was like, late 2019. That's when I partnered with Tudor Ocean Inc. And Will and his team. And I felt like the world was kind of like falling down on me. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to put myself out there. And I was too scared to feel like what people would think of me, right? And then not too long ago, well, not recently, but not too long ago, I just made a mental decision to, I can't continue to think about or care what other people think of me. And I can also realize that learning from failure, right? I did fail, but I would rather, go to the plate, so to speak, give an analogy. I'd rather go to bat and strike out, than never go and swing. Right. So it sucked. It was, I was kind of depressed, to be honest with you. But what really helped me, and Will helped me out, and my team helped me out, Curtis and Dan and a bunch of other people at the business helped me out, because I was part of this team with this cohesiveness. And so that helped me, but I also I never gave up on myself. I always knew that I had what it would take in me to be successful and get the word out there and help grow this business, right? But yeah, definitely failure sucks, but it's also, I think, essential, especially for those that are entrepreneurs, but learning from your failure. So the key things that I learned from failing were, if you say you're going to do something, if you say you're going to send something to a client or whatever, do it, right? If you say it's something, right? So now I've got in my Asana tasks, I have my promise list. So every time I have conversation with a prospect or client and I say, I'm going to send this to you, I put in my promise list. It's on my to-do list. It's my promise list. Right. Even though the thing that I'm going to send them may not be like crucial, it's the concept of me saying, hey, I'm going to do this. So I do it. Right.
Yeah.
So that's something that I've improved on, and other things like, yeah, I think the important thing is too, to like, it's okay to fail, and people that saw you fail, it's not like, they're going to remember like, oh my God, that video that you put out like 2.5 years ago. And like, nobody cares. I'm just going to remember that if anything, like if I saw someone failing and then they come back, wow, that I would applaud them and say, hey, that's amazing. Like, look, yes, you made mistakes. Okay. You failed, quote unquote. And there's others, people on LinkedIn too, that I see that have, come out and said, oh my God, I had to close my business because of COVID, or I failed this or whatever, but they're still there and they're still they learn from their failures and now they do something else. So yeah, man, just don't give up on yourself and believe in what you do, and align yourself. I'm in sales, quote unquote, but I can't sell shit that I'm not passionate about. It's not in me. I gotta sell stuff that I see value in. And you said it earlier in this episode of, the products, the services that we provide. And I'll give an example. What helps me motivate me to get up every day. Shout out to Janelle from Georgia State University, GSU. So I'm talking to one of our clients, right? And I forget why we ended up calling, but anyway, I ended up talking to her. I think I was like asking her for like feedback or something, or no, she got in touch with me for I forget what, but anyway, got in touch, and I just naturally asked her, hey, so like, how is it? Like, how's the service? How's the product? This, that. She was like, it's great. It's great. It's awesome. And she's like, yeah, but like your product and your features, benefits, that's all cool. But what the best part is, Jeff? I'm like, whoa, what's up? She goes, you and your company help me keep my job. I'm like, what? I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, your platform allowed us to connect. We didn't have a platform before to connect. So if it wasn't for your platform, I wouldn't be able to connect with students. So I don't know if I would have a job. I said, wow. So like, here I am selling a platform with all these bells and whistles and automation and semi-automation processes and blah, 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 blah. Oh man, I'm not doing that. I'm helping people keep their job. As a mother who's like, hey, I'm a mother, and you help me keep my job. I'm like, holy shit. Right? That's pretty crazy. So yeah, anyway, long story short, just don't care what people think about you. Put yourself out there. If you fail, it's okay. Learn from your mistakes, right? There's another saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So yeah, so don't try not to repeat the same mistakes, especially if you can control them, right? If you can control the outcome, then yeah, don't repeat those mistakes, but also don't be scared to fail. If you fail, you fail, and you move on, and don't care what people think of you.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I agree with that 100%. Is like, and thank you for sharing that. Like, cause I know a lot of people are going to get value from that. And the crazy thing is like, I've had my own experience with failing. And I know when we first met, I was in real estate, and I sort of failed out of real estate and lost, I put 10 grand into pretty much trying to get that going, and pretty much lost it all. And that was the reason I had to leave it, because I just couldn't, keep the business afloat. But learning from that, and it's like, to be honest, it's like, it's your ego that gets hit the most with it, right? Because you say, oh, I'm going to do this, or, you have these aspirations and you have these goals. And then sometimes you sort of realize in it that you're like, actually, this isn't like, maybe the goals you set for yourself weren't actually the goals you wanted to achieve. Maybe all of a sudden you're not actually interested in that field, or you want to switch or something like that. And that sort of takes a hit with your ego. But the thing that I really learned is like, everybody, like, as I get older and stuff and I start to learn more, is that everybody is going through their own problems. Like everybody has their own problems. Like, people don't have time to really, like, do you really think like people are going to be like laughing at you when you fail or something? Yeah, they might put a comment, but like, they might actually be, that comment majority of the time of when people, and I learned this a lot from Gary Vee, it's proven, it's been true. Cause like, I've had this interaction before, is the majority of time when people lash out to somebody else is usually because something is not going well in their life and they're angry and they're upset. and that's why they're lashing out at you, right? Because they're upset because, you know, maybe something happened in their personal life or in business, right? And the same thing happens when you're winning, right? People get mad at you when you're winning because then they get jealous.
Like,
it's either way. Like, even if you're winning, you're still gonna have people that are gonna be upset because something's happening in their life, and they're gonna be in pain, and they want to, you know, they're trying to fix that, and they're just gonna lash out. So that's a great thing you said. Is like either way, like when you're winning and you're not winning, just don't listen to people. Trust your inner circle, trust your friends, family, or whoever that maybe it's not family or for whatever reasons, right? But like trust just your inner circle, trust them, and rely on them for, you know, your thoughts. You know, should you do this? Should you do that? And just rely on them, right?
Definitely. It's if people are lashing out like that, like the negativity, it tells you more about them, right? Like you've seen it with, like I watched UFC, Ultimate Fighting Championship, and you know, Conor McGregor fought not too long ago, and all these fickle fans and even other even his competition are like, listen, whether you like the guy or not, whatever, that's a whole other different discussion. But like, you know, when you're kicking a person when they're down, that kind of shows who you really are, right? And then you see some other athletes on the contrary that are like, hey, like, look, this person that seemed invincible, even, you know, just with his trash talking abilities with getting people's head and then his skills in the octagon, right? The guy knows how to fight, right? But look at that. You see, and a lot of people look at these athletes as like superheroes and like they don't have problems, but no, they do have challenges. Some of them have, you know, substance abuses, some of them have family issues, some of them have things in their own mind, right? And so that's it, man.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I love that, and I think that's an amazing place to leave the podcast. So yeah, thank you, Jeff, for coming on the show. It's been absolutely amazing hearing about your story, what you guys are doing in the educational space, you know, and, you know, some of the time actually helping people save their jobs, which I actually love. And I think is incredible what you guys are doing on that end. You know, now sort of for like a little plug, where can people find out, you know, more about you, your services, anything else you sort of want to plug or talk about for the next, you know, couple minutes?
Yeah, the really the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. It's always almost open. It's always open on my computer and my now my iPhone. I transitioned from Android to iPhone. But the best place to see me, and the link is linkedin.com/in/Jeff Giorgi / I think there's another / there. Anyway, we'll leave a link. That's really the best place to see what we're about. I post content on the regular, and I try to give value to people. It's not just us bragging and saying what we do. It's value based, and that's the best place for people to reach me.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Jeff, for coming on the show.
My pleasure, man. Thank you.